One of the conversations we wanted to have this morning around COVID-19 was the difficulty in containing it when you're talking about, long-term care homes. We've obviously talked about cruise ships. I want to focus this morning on prisons because, as we know, it's almost impossible to keep that physical distancing when you're in an environment like that. And we're starting to see the numbers go up. I want to show you what I'm talking about in terms of how many people have been tested in penitentiaries, in the federal penitentiaries right across this country. So 511 people have been tested. Inmates have been tested. Of those 511 people, 170 inmates have tested positive for COVID-19. 66 correctional officers have COVID-19. One inmate has died. 29 people have recovered. This is according to Correctional Service Canada. Another example, the Joliet Institution for Women in Quebec. There are 50 confirmed cases of COVID-19. That may sound like a low number, but at this facility, that is 60% of all the prisoners. So right now, we've got advocacy groups calling for more testing, increased sanitary measures, also asking for the immediate release of some offenders. I want to give you some comparisons with other countries. In the U.S., I mean, think about this number: 2.3 million people are incarcerated in the U.S. 2.3 million people. And I'm going to give you an example in Ohio. At 3 facilities in Ohio, 1,300 inmates have tested positive for COVID-19. What they're telling the inmates, they've gone from 3 meals down to 2 meals a day to try to keep people apart as much as possible. They've upped the caloric intake as a result of that. They're telling inmates to sleep head to toe. So what does that mean? That means there's numerous inmates in cells together, right? Some inmates are being released early. We were talking last week about Michael Cohen, obviously Trump's former personal lawyer. He was supposed to be released in November 2021, so next year. He is now released and in home confinement. We're seeing pockets of that trickling throughout the world. In Iran, remember back in March, they temporarily released 85,000 prisoners to try to stop the spread of COVID-19. In the UK, COVID-19 cases are confirmed in half of the prisons in England and Wales. 13 inmates have died, Anne-Marie, and they actually have come up with a program to free some prisoners early. The problem is, last week, they accidentally released 6 inmates by mistake. Now, those 6 inmates voluntarily came back into the prison. So it was supposed to start this week, this program that they've come up with. That is now postponed to next week. Obviously, they've got some wrinkles to iron out there. But, Anne-Marie, I mean, a difficult situation. What do you do? It's a confined space. There's not a lot of physical distancing, Ben, as well.
Well, that's exactly right. The entire concept of incarceration runs counter to all of these rules that are supposed to keep us safe. So if there's an outbreak in a prison, it's going to run through that place like wildfire. So a lot of real hard choices a lot of hard choices that have to be made as a society. And so how we treat these prisoners and what we do with them.
And tough, Lindsey, as you point out, when there's a rough rollout, because the concern for people is who is going to be let out, who is staying in, and when mistakes are made. Now, fortunately, this ended well, but when mistakes are made right from the get-go, that only adds to people's fears and the concerns about having people who you assume are going to be locked up out back in the public.
You know, we're going to continue having this conversation a little bit later today about what a post-COVID-19 world looks like. There might be a larger conversation about prison reform because of this, because when you see the failings and the weaknesses of the system, perhaps it might be time to reevaluate the entire prison system.
Well, and in fairness, it wasn't. I mean, none of our systems are designed to manage a pandemic of this scale, right? It's hard to know that when you're setting it up. Really good points, Lindsey, and an interesting story. We've been checking in on this story right since the beginning. Remember interviewing somebody who works with inmates who they were advocating at the time. Please let people have some space to practice physical distancing, give them a chance to preserve their own health. Interesting to see where it's developed. Thanks, Lindsey. Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.